A plate of ribs steamed in Jason Statham's hands, thick slabs of smoked meat glistening in sauce, the smell of hickory sharp in the warm Los Angeles air. He had just taken his first bite when it happened. A massive shadow fell over the picnic table. A fist shot out, snatched the ribs from Jason's hands, and raised them high. In the same motion, Travis Riptide, Kane leaned forward and spat thickly across the meat, the glob landing with a wet smack, sliding down the bone, dripping onto the table. Gasps snapped through the crowd. Jason looked up slowly, wiping sauce from his lips with a napkin. Kane, 6 feet 3 inches, scarred and barrel-chested, stood over him, jaw clenched, heat in his eyes. "You stole my life, you fake," Kane growled. "You cost me my career. You wanna play soldier? Let's see what's real." Jason didn't blink. He didn't move. But something behind his eyes shifted, just a flicker. The crowd froze. Phones came out, screens lit like fireflies under the hanging string lights. Conversations died as people leaned in. A kid whispered, "That's Jason Statham," but no one spoke above it. Kane wasn't finished. He leaned in closer, voice low and venomous. "You think you're a tough guy, 'cause you ran a SEAL demo? That course was mine. My command. You humiliated me." Jason exhaled through his nose. Slow, controlled. He stood. Wiped his hands again. Tossed the crumpled napkin on the ruined ribs. His voice was cool, quiet. "You're a long way from earning that." Kane's grin widened. "You afraid to fight back, Hollywood?" He stepped backward, arms spread, clearing a circle in the dirt as the music faded and all eyes shifted to the unfolding standoff. "Right here. Right now. Unless you're just another actor hiding behind edits." Jason's jaw tensed. He gave one short nod, then stepped forward. No fear, no flash. Just fury waiting. Before we proceed, like and subscribe to catch Jason Statham's epic face-off with Smug Navy SEAL, and comment where you're watching from today. The heat clung to the city like a second skin. It was one of those sweltering July nights in Los Angeles where everything smelled like hot pavement, engine exhaust, and barbecue smoke. A street food festival had swallowed an entire parking lot near downtown, lined with neon-lit food trucks pumping out ribs, birria tacos, teriyaki skewers, and greasy fries in paper boats. Live music thumped from a distant stage. Someone strummed a steel guitar, and beer vendors shouted over the buzz. String lights stretched across the lot like makeshift stars, and the smell of charcoal clung to the air. The place pulsed with energy. Families, couples, influencers snapping photos, kids licking popsicles, all caught in the summer night's momentum. At the heart of the chaos, a dozen picnic tables served as battlegrounds for elbows and trays. People fought for space, for food, for a moment to sit and breathe. And among them sat one man, alone, quietly chewing. Jason Statham didn't come here to be seen. Black cap pulled low, jacket worn soft to the collar, he blended into the crowd like any other late-night loner looking for a solid plate of meat. No entourage. No cameras. Just hunger and quiet. He had taken a seat at a splintered picnic table near a taco truck, plate of ribs heavy in one hand, a bottle of cold water in the other. No distractions. No obligations. The smell of hickory and peppered meat reminded him of old roadside diners on UK backroads, the kind you find when you're lost and lucky. People passed him by, some with a second glance, some none at all. That was the goal. A rare night off. No stunt doubles. No press junkets. No egos. Just food and the sound of nothing. Until ego showed up. And everything changed. Travis Riptide Kane once ruled the U.S. Navy SEAL training circuit like a wolf. Broad-shouldered, carved from concrete, his name carried weight in the Special Forces. He was fast, brutal, and most of all, cocky. In 2018, his unit hosted a closed demo for Hollywood consultants prepping for military roles. One name on the guest list made him scoff: Jason Statham. An actor. A diver. A movie brawler. But then Jason ran the SEAL obstacle course. Not for show, not for a social post, but with laser focus. He sprinted, climbed, crawled, dove, and finished faster than most of Kane's own team. Word spread before Kane even finished lacing up. Whispers from his superiors cut deep. That actor's got more discipline than you. Kane pretended not to hear it, but he did. His pride curdled into poison. His arrogance amplified. His temper snapped. Within months, he was dishonorably discharged. Too many incidents, too many outbursts. The SEALs let him go. He blamed one man. Jason Statham. Now reduced to bouncing private doors and low-end security work, Kane nursed that grudge like a loaded gun. And tonight, that gun finally went off. He had been working a private gig down the block, earpiece still dangling from his collar when he wandered into the food fest for a beer. And there he was, Jason, at a table, smiling, eating, like none of it ever happened. Kane's knuckles tightened. His chest lit up like a fuse box. The man who destroyed his career wasn't in a suit or on a red carpet. He was chewing ribs under fairy lights like an average Joe, relaxed, unnoticed, free. Kane's boots pounded the pavement as he shoved past a couple holding churros, sending soda cups flying. His eyes locked on Jason, rage boiling over. You cost me everything. Tonight wasn't about cameras or ego. It was about revenge served hotter than any barbecue on the lot. The ribs hit the ground with a dull slap, sauce streaking across Jason's boots. Kane stood over him, chest rising, spit still dripping from the ruined meal. His voice was soaked in venom, loud enough for everyone around to hear. Still pretending to be hard, huh? Kane sneered. What, you think a movie montage makes you a man? Jason didn't rise. Not yet. Kane leaned closer, eyes bulging. I was the real thing, Statham. You ran one training course and played soldier while I bled for this country. And they laughed at me. Laughed. Because of you. People around them had stopped eating. The guitar player at the corner stage hit a wrong chord and paused mid-strum. Conversations faded into tight silence. Kane kicked the plate further. You're not a warrior. You're a walking poster. And now I'm gonna show everyone how fake you really are. He cracked his knuckles loud enough to pop over the ambient hum of the festival. Jason slowly raised his eyes. There was no fear. Only focus. Jason stood. He didn't posture. He didn't puff his chest. He wiped his hands with a crumpled napkin, picked up the plate, and placed it gently on the trash can beside the table. Sauce dripped down his knuckles as he turned back to Kane. You've had 7 years to get past this, he said, voice low and sharp. You chose to keep carrying it. Kane stepped forward again, inches from Jason's face. You embarrassed me in front of my command. Jason didn't flinch. I didn't embarrass you, he replied. You did that yourself. For a moment, Kane blinked, like the words landed harder than expected. Jason gave him one last out. Walk away. This is your final offer. Kane laughed. Final offer? What are you, a lawyer? He shoved Jason hard in the shoulder. Jason didn't move. Didn't even sway. The crowd thickened fast, like a magnet had pulled them in. By now, at least 50 people had formed a wide circle around the two men. Some climbed benches. Others stood on coolers. Hands fumbled for phones, and the soft red glow of recording screens blinked to life. This real? Someone whispered. That's Jason Statham, right? Who's the other guy? Some Navy SEAL? This is gonna be insane. Vendors paused mid-sale, their grills still sizzling unattended. A father scooped up his daughter and stepped back. Nearby, a woman clutched a lemonade, eyes wide with tension. People didn't shout. They held their breath. It was the kind of silence that comes before something ancient, a storm, a quake, a reckoning. Jason stood still in the center, breathing steady, fists loose by his sides. Kane paced, jaw tight, chest flexing as he barked. Let them see it, Statham. Let them see the truth. You're soft. You always were. Jason's expression didn't change. But the circle was closing. The fuse was lit. Kane stepped backward, arms raised, voice rising above the crowd. You all know this guy, right? he shouted. Big star. Big muscles. Action hero. He jabbed a thumb toward Jason. Well, tonight, you're gonna see what happens when a real operator, someone who's actually been in the dirt, goes up against a fraud. He turned to Jason again, fire in his voice. Fight me. Right here. No cameras, no crew, no scripts. Jason didn't answer. Kane stomped forward again. Come on. Let's see if you're really made of the stuff your movies pretend. Jason exhaled once, stepped forward, closed the gap, and spoke. Careful what you ask for. The words dropped like lead. Someone near the front gasped. Phones zoomed in tighter. Jason rolled back his shoulders, cracked his neck once, and slowly took off his jacket, folding it, setting it on the bench. His shirt clung to his frame, every muscle primed, jaw set. Kane smiled, wide and wicked. He bounced on his toes. I'll make it quick. Jason just nodded once. The fight was no longer a maybe. It was now. Jason stood still for a moment, just breathing. His eyes were locked on Kane, face unreadable. Then he took a step forward. Slow. Silent. Deliberate. No flinch. No twitch. He was not charging. He wasn't puffing up. He was committing. The crowd instinctively took a step back, opening the circle wider. The stillness of Jason's movement, its weight, was more terrifying than a scream. Kane squared up, grinning like a predator. Jason said nothing. He reached up slowly, pulled off his cap, folded it once, and placed it on the bench behind him. Then he tugged off his jacket and set it down next to the cap with quiet care. His arms, tight with trained muscle, relaxed at his sides. He rolled his left shoulder once. That was it. Eyes sharp as razors. Cold. Locked in. No stance. No posing. Just waiting. Kane bounced on his heels, laughing under his breath. But even he noticed something in Jason's silence. It wasn't hesitation. It was timing. Jason looked like a man who had already calculated the fight 5 moves ahead, and still chose to let it come to him. Still got your Hollywood stunt team waiting to save you? Kane sneered. He raised both arms and spun in a slow circle, addressing the crowd. This guy's been pretending to fight for 20 years. He's got editors, slow MO, body doubles. What's he gonna do out here? Cut a trailer? Laughter rippled through a few sections of the crowd. Kane jabbed a finger at Jason. You ever been in a real fight, Statham? Not a choreographed one. Not one with 6 takes and crash pads. Jason remained still. A storm waiting to land. Kane stepped closer, his voice low now, right in Jason's face. I took down men twice your size in countries you can't pronounce. I broke spines before breakfast. You memorize scripts. He leaned in tighter. I'm gonna drop you so hard, they'll call it your last scene. Jason's eyes didn't move. Not once. Around them, the crowd was electric. People whispered, phones shaking in hands, bets being made under breath. One guy muttered, he's gonna get wrecked. That seal's massive. Another voice said, you don't know who Jason is, do you? That man trained for real. Kids stood on crates. A food vendor abandoned his cart entirely. Festival goers held their drinks like it was a theater show unfolding live. Only the script had caught fire. Someone on Instagram was already live-streaming. Thousands of viewers and climbing. People weren't just watching. They were invested. Not just in the fight, but in what Jason would do next. The silence around him wasn't just fear. It was respect. Jason didn't talk. He didn't posture. He just stared at the man in front of him like he'd already ended the fight in his head. Kane's smile faltered. He needed motion, chaos, to feel in control. The stillness. It was rattling him. So he lunged. Suddenly. Hard. His left arm snapped forward, fist rocketing toward Jason's collarbone. Fast, direct, military-grade force behind it. Jason didn't block. He turned. One smooth pivot of the torso, just enough to let the punch slide past. Then his lead foot shifted. The stance changed. Low. Balanced. Centered. His right arm came up, not to swing, but to calculate. The crowd gasped. Jason was done waiting. Kane struck first, and hard. His punch landed flush in Jason's gut with the force of a piledriver, slamming straight through muscle and knocking the air clean out of him. Jason bent forward, breath gone, pain blooming across his ribs like fire. Before he could recover, Kane grabbed the back of his neck and drove a short elbow into his jaw, snapping Jason's head sideways with a sickening crack. Blood sprayed from his lip. The crowd flinched. Jason staggered, boots skidding in the dirt, nearly falling backward, but stayed up. Kane wasn't letting up. He grabbed Jason by the collar and threw him into the edge of the picnic table, rattling wood and sending plastic utensils flying. Jason bounced off it with a grunt, dazed. Kane smirked. "This what it's like in your director's chair?" Jason's knees buckled slightly, eyes blurred, but his hands stayed up. The crowd murmured, doubt creeping in. Phones wavered. Someone whispered, "He might actually lose." Kane circled like a shark, breathing heavy but smiling wide. He unleashed another blow, a hammering left hook that caught Jason in the shoulder, spinning him slightly. Another punch followed, a wild overhand right that skimmed Jason's temple. Jason stumbled back. Kane raised both arms. "Told you. Paper tough guy." A few cheers rang out. But Jason was not down. Not yet. Jason blinked through the blood in his eye. His stance lowered. Shoulders loose. Chin tucked. Then Kane roared and came in swinging again. But this time, Jason moved. Fast. He ducked the right hook. Slipped under the left. Pivoted inside the arc and... crack! His elbow shot upward into Kane's nose with brutal, surgical force. The bone snapped audibly. Blood exploded. Kane reeled backward, hands flying to his face. Jason pressed forward. A sharp front kick to the thigh buckled Kane's left leg, destabilizing him. Another elbow. This time to the ribs. Then, Jason twisted and fired a tight, downward hammer fist into Kane's shoulder joint. Up. Kane screamed and stumbled sideways, swinging blind. Jason sidestepped, grabbed his wrist mid-swing, and drove a bone-rattling knee into Kane's stomach, folding him like a lawn chair. Kane dropped to one knee, coughing violently, blood and spit painting the dirt. The crowd lost it. Gasps, shouts, camera flashes in every direction. Jason didn't stop. He threw Kane's arm behind his back, grabbed his elbow, and twisted hard, ligaments snapping like dry rope. Kane howled in agony. The pain was catching up. So was the fear. Kane's strength was slipping through his fingers like sand, and Jason was just getting started. Kane swung wildly out of instinct, but Jason caught his wrist mid-swing and slammed his forearm down across it, knocking the punch off course and sending Kane stumbling again. Jason advanced like a machine, measured, merciless. He stepped in close, dropped his center of gravity, and drove a shoulder into Kane's ribs, already cracked, forcing a wheezing scream from deep in his chest. The crowd gasped as Kane collapsed again. Jason grabbed his collar, dragged him up by force. The fight had flipped. Now Kane was surviving. Jason was dominating. A precise jab to Kane's sternum folded him again, followed by a low hook to the liver. Kane dropped to both knees, hands clawing the air, gasping like a drowning man. Jason stood over him, eyes like steel. But he wasn't done. He stepped behind, grabbed Kane by the back of the head, and slammed his face into the side of the picnic bench. Blood sprayed. Teeth clattered onto the ground. The circle of onlookers recoiled in unison. Some turned away. Some couldn't stop watching. Kane's arms dangled. His legs twitched. He tried to push himself up, but failed. Jason let him. He stepped back, gave him space. Let him rise if he wanted. Kane blinked through blood. And stood. Barely. Kane wobbled, legs like spaghetti, one eye swollen shut, nose broken, jaw hanging open. But still, he raised his fists. Still thinking he could win. Jason exhaled once. and then struck. The final combo came fast. He threw a left hook, not to hit, but to bait. Kane bit. Jason ducked under it, spun around his back, and drove his knee into the back of Kane's thigh, collapsing him down again. But before Kane could hit the ground, Jason caught him by the neck, twisted, lifted, and unleashed one final hook, a bone-shattering, full-body right to Kane's jaw. Crack. The impact sent Kane flying sideways. His body spun and hit the ground like a puppet with cut strings. Silence. A beat passed. Then came the screams, the cheers, the chaos. Jason stood over him, chest rising and falling, fists still clenched. Kane didn't move. Blood pooled under his cheek. Someone from the crowd yelled, "He's not breathing, call medics." Jason didn't gloat. He didn't speak. He just looked down at the man who once spat in his food. Then turned, grabbed his jacket from the bench, and walked away, slow, steady. Every camera followed. Every eye locked on his back. And the crowd knew. They hadn't just seen a fight. They'd witnessed a reckoning. Jason stood over Kane's broken body, his fists slowly unclenching, blood dripping from his knuckles. His breathing was steady but heavy, ribs rising beneath the sweat-soaked shirt, a cut over his right brow still bleeding slowly. The pain in his gut throbbed, his jaw ached from that earlier elbow, but he stood tall, perfectly balanced. Kane was sprawled on the dirt like a shattered statue, face swollen, jaw slack, lips torn, unmoving. Jason looked down, expression flat. No satisfaction. No anger. Just clarity. Around them, everything else faded. The sounds, the lights, even the cheers hadn't started yet. There was just the hum of electricity in the air. Raw energy. Unspoken finality. The cap Jason had removed earlier lay nearby in the dirt, untouched. He didn't reach for it yet. He just let the moment breathe, like a final chord ringing out before the credits roll. A few feet away, someone whispered, "He didn't even swing first." Another voice replied, "He didn't need to." Jason lowered his head slightly, just enough to look Kane in the eyes, if he was still conscious enough to see. His voice came low, steady, meant only for the man on the ground, but the silence in the circle carried it to every ear. "You didn't lose everything because of me." He paused, letting it hang. "You lost it because you couldn't handle your own failure." Kane's fingers twitched. A shallow groan escaped his lips. But he didn't move. Jason continued, "You blamed me for being better, when all I did was show up and try." He knelt just slightly, not out of sympathy, but so Kane could hear the last line clearly. "That's why you're in the dirt, and I'm still standing." No heat. No gloat. Just truth. Jason stood back up slowly, adjusted his shirt collar, and turned away. Kane didn't speak again. Not a word. The crowd had been frozen. No one wanted to be the first to speak. But once Jason turned his back, the silence shattered. Applause erupted like thunder. It wasn't just clapping. It was a roar of respect, of awe, of release. People stomped, whistled, yelled his name. Phones shot into the air, capturing every frame of his quiet walk. "That's Jason Statham!" someone screamed. The live stream views surged. Food vendors stood motionless behind their grills. Families high-fived. Strangers clapped each other on the back like they had just witnessed history. A teenage boy on his dad's shoulders shouted, "He's a real fighter, Dad." The man just nodded. At the center of it all, Jason didn't wave, didn't smile. He acknowledged them with one slow nod, an unspoken "it's done." Then walked past the scattered remains of the fight. Behind him, people swarmed Kane's lifeless body, but no one approached Jason. They knew better. Jason walked back toward the vendor stall where it all started. The man behind the counter, eyes wide and still stunned, stood frozen as Jason approached. Without a word, Jason pointed at the ribs again. The vendor nodded, too stunned to speak, and handed him a fresh plate, piled high with meat, sauce steaming. Jason took it, gave a small nod of thanks, and turned. He passed the ring of phones, the crowd parting like water. He didn't look back. No victory laps. No words. Just that same calm walk, the one that began before the fight ever started. The cap lay on the ground near the edge of the picnic bench. Jason bent down slowly, picked it up, dusted it off, and pulled it over his head. He gave one final glance toward the busted circle where Kane still lay in the dirt. Then he vanished into the crowd. No music. No credits. Just Jason, and the smell of barbecue. Some people walk through life like it owes them something. They brag louder than their victories. They scream about toughness but flinch when challenged. They mistake fear for respect, and humiliation for justice. But real men, they do not chase fights. They do not need an audience to validate their worth. They know that when you truly carry strength, you do not need to throw it around just to feel important. You carry it quietly, like a burden, not a trophy. Jason never went to that festival looking for trouble. He wanted ribs. He wanted peace. He earned both. But when a man spit on his food, challenged his name, and disrespected everyone watching, he ended it. Not to win a crowd. Not to look tough. But to remind the world what real toughness looks like. And here's the truth. Ego gets loud. But honor stays silent until the line is crossed. Then it speaks. Once. With force. Respect isn't earned by yelling louder than the next man. It isn't proven in how hard you hit. It is earned in how you carry yourself when someone tries to tear you down. It's earned when you don't throw the first punch, but you throw the last one when it counts. Jason Statham didn't walk away with a medal. He didn't ask for a spotlight. But every person who watched that fight left changed. Not because he fought, but because he stood. Because he stayed silent, until the silence needed to be broken. You don't earn respect by being the loudest in the room. You earn it by surviving the hit, and rising like it meant nothing,